I understand. Very well. Ahem. Lord Marshmoreton coughed. George looked at him with some surprise. He had supposed the interview to be at an end, but the other made no move to go. There seemed to be something on the earl's mind. There is just one other thing, said Lord Marshmoreton. He coughed again. He felt embarrassed. Just one other thing, he repeated. The reason for Lord Marshmoreton's visit to George had been twofold. In the first place, Lady Caroline had told him to go. That would have been reason enough. But what made the visit imperative was an unfortunate accident of which he had only that morning been made aware. It will be remembered that Billie Dore had told George that the gardener with whom she had become so friendly had taken her name and address with a view, later on, to send her some of his roses. The scrap of paper on which this information had been written was now lost. Lord Marshmoreton had been hunting for it since breakfast without avail. Billie Dore had made a decided impression upon Lord Marshmoreton. She belonged to a type which he had never before encountered, and it was one of which he had found more than agreeable. Her knowledge of roses and the proper feeling which she manifested towards rose growing as a life work consolidated the earl's liking for her. Never in his memory had he come across so sensible and charming a girl, and he had looked forward with a singular intensity to meeting her again. And now some too zealous housemaid, tidying up after the irritating manner of her species, had destroyed the only clue to her identity. It was not for some time after this discovery that hope dawned again for Lord Marshmoreton. Only after he had given up the search for the missing paper as fruitless did he recall that it was in George's company that Billie had first come into his life. Between her, then, and himself, George was the only link. It was primarily for the purpose of getting Billie's name and address from George that he came to the cottage, and now that the moment had arrived for touching upon the subject, he felt a little embarrassed. "When you visited the castle," he said. "When you visited the castle?" "Last Thursday," said George helpfully. "Exactly. When you visited the castle last Thursday, there was a young lady with you." Not realizing that the subject had been changed, George was under the impression that the other had shifted his front and was about to attack him from another angle. He countered what seemed to him an insinuation stoutly. "We merely had to meet at the castle. She came there quite independently of me." Lord Marshmoreton looked alarmed. "You didn't know her?" he said anxiously. "Well, certainly I knew her. She's an old friend of mine. But if you are hinting Not at all," rejoined the earl, profoundly relieved. "Not at all. I ask merely because this young lady, with whom I had some conversation, was good enough to give me her name and address. She, too, happened to mistake me for a gardener." "It's those corduroy trousers," murmured George in extenuation. "I unfortunately have lost them." "You can always get another pair." "Eh?" "I say you can always get another pair of corduroy trousers." "I have not lost my trousers. I have lost the young lady's name and address." "Oh!" "I promised to send her some roses. She will be expecting them." "Well, that's odd. I was just reading a letter from her when you came in. That must be what she's referring to when she says, 'If you see Dada, the old dear, tell him not to forget my roses.' I read it 3 times and couldn't make any sense out of it. Are you Dada?" The earl smirked. "She did address me in the course of our conversation as Dada." "Then the message is for you." "A very quaint, charming girl. What is her name, and where can I find her?" "Her name's Billie Dore." "Billie?" "Billie. Billie," said Lord Marshmoreton softly. "I had better write it down. And her address?" "I don't know her private address, but you could always reach her at the Regal Theatre." "Ah, she's on the stage?" "Yes, she's in my piece, Follow the Girl." "Indeed? Are you a playwright, Mr. Bevan?" "Oh, good Lord, no," said George, shocked. "I'm a composer." "Very interesting. And you met Miss Dore through her being in this play of yours?" "Oh, no, I knew her before she went on the stage. She was a stenographer in a music publisher's office when we first met." "Good gracious! Was she really a stenographer?" "Yes. Why?" "Oh, nothing. Nothing. Something just happened to come to my mind." What happened to come into Lord Marshmoreton's mind was a fleeting vision of Billie installed in Miss Alice Faraday's place as his secretary. With such a helper it would be a pleasure to work on that infernal family history, which was now such a bitter toil. But the daydream passed. He knew perfectly well that he had not the courage to dismiss Alice. In the hands of that calm-eyed girl he was putty. She exercised over him the hypnotic spell a lion tamer exercises over its little playmates. "We have been pals for years," said George. "Billy is one of the best fellows in the world." "A charming girl." "She would give her last nickel to anyone that asked for it." "Delightful." "Delightful." "And as straight as a string. No one ever said a word against Billy." "No?" "She may go out to lunch and supper and all that kind of thing, but there's nothing to that." "Nothing," agreed the Earl warmly. "Girls must eat." "They do. You ought to see them. A little harmless relaxation after the fatigue of the day." "Exactly. Nothing more." Lord Marshmoreton felt more drawn than ever to this sensible young man. Sensible, at least, on all points but one. It was a pity they could not see eye to eye on what was and what was not suitable in the matter of love affairs of the aristocracy. "So you are a composer, Mr. Bevan?" he said affably. "Yes." Lord Marshmoreton gave a little sigh. "'Tis a long time since I went up to see a musical performance. More than 20 years. When I was up at Oxford, and for some years afterwards, I was a great theatre goer. Never used to miss a first night at the Gaiety. Those were the days of Nellie Farren and Kate Vaughan. Florence St. John, too. How excellent she was and fast up to date. But we missed Nellie Farren. Meyer Lutz was the Gaiety composer then. But a good deal of water has flowed under the bridge since those days. I don't suppose you ever heard of Meyer Lutz?" "I don't think I have." "Johnny Toole was playing a piece called Partners. Not a good play. And The Yeoman of the Guard had just been produced at the Savoy. That makes it seem a long time ago, doesn't it? Well, I mustn't take up all your time. Good-bye, Mr. Bevan. I am glad to have had the opportunity of this little talk. The Regal Theatre, I think you said, is where your piece is playing. I shall probably be going to London shortly. I hope to see it." Lord Marshmoreton rose. "As regards the other matter, there is no hope of inducing you to see the matter in the right light?" "We seem to disagree as to which is the right light." "Then there is nothing more to be said. I will be perfectly frank with you, Mr. Bevan. I like you. The feeling is quite mutual. But I don't want you as a son-in-law. And damn it!" exploded Lord Marshmoreton, "I won't have you as a son-in-law. Good God, do you think that you can harry and assault my son Percy in the heart of Piccadilly, and generally make yourself a damned nuisance, and then settle down here without an invitation at my very gates, and expect to be welcomed into the bosom of the family? If I were a young man—" "I thought we had agreed that you were a young man."
"Don't interrupt me."
"I only said—"
"I heard what you said. Flattery."
"Nothing of the kind. Truth."
Lord Marshmoreton melted. He smiled. Young idiot.
"Well, we agreed there, all right." Lord Marshmoreton hesitated. Then with a rush he unbosomed himself and made his own position on the matter clear.
"I know what you'll be saying to yourself the moment my back is turned. You'll be calling me a stage-heavy father and an old snob and a number of other things. Don't interrupt me, damn it. You will, I tell you. And you'll be wrong. I don't think the Marshmoretons are fenced off from the rest of the world by some sort of divinity. My sister does. Percy does. But Percy's an ass. If ever you find yourself thinking differently from my son Percy on any subject, congratulate yourself. You'll be right. But I know what you're going to say. Let me finish. If I were the only person concerned, I wouldn't stand in Maud's way, whoever she wanted to marry, provided he was a good fellow and likely to make her happy. But I am not. There's my sister Caroline. There's a whole crowd of silly, cackling fools. My sisters, my sons-in-law, all the whole pack of them. If I didn't oppose Maud in this damned infatuation she's got for you, if I stood by and let her marry you, what do you think would happen to me? I'd never have a moment's peace. The whole gabbling pack of them would be at me, saying I was to blame. There would be arguments, discussions, family councils. I hate arguments. I loathe discussions. Family councils make me sick. I'm a peaceable man, and I like a quiet life. And damn, I'm going to have it. So there's the thing for you in letters of one syllable. I don't object to you personally, but I'm not going to have you bothering me like this. I'll admit freely that since I have made your acquaintance, I have altered the unfavourable opinion I had formed of you from hearsay." "Exactly the same with me," said George. "You ought never to believe what people tell you. Everyone told me your middle name was Nero, and that—" "Don't interrupt me."
"I wasn't. I was just pointing out—"
"Be quiet. I say I have changed my opinion of you to a great extent. I mention this unofficially as a matter that has no bearing on the main issue, for, as regards any idea you may have of inducing me to agree to your marrying my daughter, let me tell you that I am unalterably opposed to any such thing."
"Oh, don't say that."
"What the devil do you mean, don't say that? I do say that. It is out of the question. Do you understand?" "Very well, then. Good morning." The door closed.
Lord Marshmoreton walked away, feeling that he had been commended